Friday, you guys open up in New York.
Yes.
It's kind of a platform release from there. How does that feel? Do you feel, are the nerves going?
Yeah, the adrenaline is going. You know, I'm way up there on the adrenaline meter. So it's very exciting, and you know, it's been a something I wanted to do for many years.
Yeah.
And now to see this, you know, through force of will and belief and dreams, you know, to see it to this point is very exciting. And the response has been terrific here. Peter Travis is coming out with a terrific. He's going to give me a sneak peek. He's coming out in the Rolling Stone magazine with a terrific review. Jeffrey Lyons. We've been having screenings in New York and with different people, and it's been really very, very exciting and positive. So I'm you know, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, fantastic review.
Yeah,
I read
that's great
today,
to hear. That's wonderful.
And yeah, Variety loved it. I mean, critics all over the place are loving the film. It has to be a different feeling for you, though, than just being featured in a film and that coming out. I mean, you have to have a lot more invested in this project. Obviously, it's a labor of love for you.
Absolutely, I think it's the closest to feeling of giving childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you're not the first person to say that.
What?
You're not the first person I've heard say that about it, like making their own film. I've heard that from a lot of like my friends who are filmmakers. That's the analogy they use.
It's absolutely. I mean, you know, you got the, you know, is the egg going to fertilize? Are you going to get your financing? You know, I mean, right. From every step of the way, you can absolutely give it the analogy of childbirthing until finally the pains of absolutely putting it in the theaters and getting it scrutinized and. Yeah, the whole 9 yards, absolutely. It has that, and you're as protective of it as a child too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I want to get back to the Dukes in just a second, but give me a sense of your upbringing. I know that you were a big music lover, as was your family, particularly opera. And I'm wondering, was that a career path at one time for you, and when did acting kind of take over?
You know, they were concurrent. They weren't. One wasn't of the exclusion of the other. I've always loved music, you know, and I had acted even in fourth grade. The first play I had done in fourth grade, so I was acting early on. And the singing around eighth grade started to, you know, when the voice changes. Mm-hmm. They noticed that I had a voice all of a sudden, I mean, a singing voice, and and I then became very passionate about the singing and opera and music in general during my high school years, but at the same time acting. So there was a concurrent love affair with singing and acting.
Did acting fulfill something in you that singing did not, or vice versa?
Well, what two things happened. One of the things with the singing, it's a very neurotic for opera. I couldn't, you know, go to bed early and don't have a drink or don't smoke a cigar or, you know, it's a very ascetic kind of lifestyle. And I was paranoid actually about, you know, not paranoid. I was just neurotic. Mm-hmm. I was neurotic about the voice and not talking too much, and I mean the whole 9 yards. So singing became much more demanding in terms of and fearful. I was fearful also of the voice not being perfect. You know, I was also a baritone with the heart of a tenor. So I was, and because I had a pretty good tessitura and good B natural, and a lot of baritones did turn into being a tenor, but later on in life, you know.
Right.
And this was happening a little bit. We were pushing it with my voice teacher, and the più timbrato, the shine of my voice, had been damaged a little bit. And I wrote Tito Gobbi a letter in Florence, because he was teaching there. He's one of the greatest singing baritones of all time. That I was having this difficulty, and then he wrote me back. Be like Marlon Brando writing an actor back. I mean, that's how.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Get a reference point of who Gobbi was in the opera world. That's who he was.
Okay.
Right.
You know, Maria Callas, Tito Gobbi. You know, I mean, these are legendary names in terms of that. So he wrote me back and said that when he was coming to the Metropolitan Opera, he wanted me to come hear him sing, and then we would have dinner, and then I would sing for him a few days later, which I did, and this all went down. And he then told me what was happening and introduced me to a man at Juilliard called Daniel Ferro, who I then studied with. But the acting was happening at the same time.
Yeah, and in terms of acting, you mentioned Brando. Was he one of the particular influences on you?
Absolutely. Brando was, everything I could read and every film I could see of Brando, it was so affecting, even to the point that I knew at an early age I wanted to study with Stella Adler because that was his mentor. And after Hofstra University, I got a scholarship for drama there. I then went to Manhattan and studied with Stella Adler for 3 years. Also got into the acting studio, but Brando was one of the great ones, yeah. I worked with him in Columbus, actually, later on in life.
Yeah, what was that? I want to ask you, first of all, what was it about Brando? Do you think it was more than anything, this is my opinion, his fearlessness that made him so special?
You know, there are guys that are fearless that aren't so special, you know.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, great.
It's a combination of that there was this in a play, Look Back in Anger. There's a description of a character that comes out of that time period. English playwright John Osborne wrote Look Back in Anger. It was a tremendous play.
Richard Burton, right? At least that's the version I know with Richard Burton.
Burton played it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Doyle or something.
Yeah, right.
It was jazz musician. And terrific, very interesting play. But it was written because of what Brando brought to the acting scene. It's helped inspire Osborne to write that play. And the description of the character that he gives in there is a bit of a character of, you could say, of Brando. And he describes him as a combination of tenderness and freebooting cruelty. And there is where you have, sometimes you analyze Monty Clift, James Dean, and Brando. And the difference between the three guys was they said, Brando said, F you. Monty Clift said, F you, help me. And, and James Dean had a triple combination of all of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Okay.
But Brando he redefined what acting was from our time period. You know, starting with the Stanislavski method and stuff like that, and what Adler brought, from the group theater, and how they changed acting from. And he was the first one to really embrace those principles. Not the first one to embrace the principles, but because he was such a force of nature, and his acting. To define his acting, for me, is he is just unique. He's centered. He doesn't. Till later in life, the later performances, of course, there is he goes from being realistic, from The Streetcar and On the Waterfront, and all those films, from realistic performances. He goes from there to impressionism to expressionism later on in life, because and most artists, if you take Picasso even, Picasso painted, he could do absolute beautiful representational paintings like a Rembrandt if he wanted to, or any real life things, but he then distorted reality, once he had that. And Brando then, at a certain point, as an artist, and he got criticized for wanting to do these, weird choices for characters. But it's because he was now let's put him as a painter, wanting to, I could be honest as heck and real. Now I want to show something else in terms of this work, and very interesting. And he had the power of Brando that was he had a tremendous power, And like I said, he would draw you in, and
the performance that I always go back to with him is Last Tango. What an
absolutely.
emotion! Oh, what a
That's the most
incredible.
of what he did. Yeah. That Last Tango in Paris with Bertolucci, where Brando did improvise, you know, and there was more of him in that piece than you know, the closest to probably what hanging out with Brando for an afternoon could be like than some of the other roles. But that's just an amazingly raw performance that he gives there. And that's courageous, you know, it's bold.
Right.
But there's a poetry to him, you know, there's an absolute poetry to Brando.
Yeah. And Stella Adler, we've spoken to several people that have studied under Stella Adler, and I get a sense that we're talking about a really tough teacher here. But what did Stella Adler give you as an actor?
Well, I mean that's a huge question. We
got time.
You know,
don't worry, we got time.
Okay, that's a huge. Stella Adler, to try to capsulize some of it, if you could think of white flame, inspiration, and the ability to communicate the ideas and the subtleties of these ideas. And it's a long process from Stanislavski and the Moscow Art Theater, Michael Chekhov, who was part of that, Penkov, Meyerhold, the whole tradition of this, and how it first came to America at the New School of Social Research, where they had the Actors Lab, where Ospinskaya and Boleslavsky taught classes there. And initially, that's where Adler and Strasberg and a lot of the New York theater people were first introduced to these principles. Adler then, it was Harold Kermis, Cheryl Crawford, and Lee Strasberg, having been so affected by the Moscow Art Theater and the change in acting style that propagated, started the group theater in America. And the group theater now was like with the Moscow Art Theater, but also a political, wanting to have social statements said in their theater. Lee Strasberg at the time was now interpreting the Stanislavski technique to the group theater, teaching the acting classes. And what had happened at this point was there were principles in the Stanislavski, the effective memory, sense memory, and certain other things that he was using, which all are good tools. And at that time, acting was very declamatory. You know, it was a little over the top there. So what these techniques did to the talent, it let them stop having to perform and more or less do something on an experiential level. And Stanislavski had observed the great actors that had this difference of performance, as opposed to, in other words, there was Sarah Bernhardt and there was Duza. Sarah Bernhardt was like watching fireworks and very exciting. Duza was a different kind of temperament, but you left the performance being more affected by Duza and more profoundly affected. You were entertained, and you went away, wow, what a thing, you know what I mean? With Bernhardt, with Duza, there was a lasting impression that was made, and it was subtle. So he analyzed this, Duza, Salvini, the great actors of the time, and come up with this thing. So now Lee is teaching the classes in the group theater, trying to get this level of experience and not representing. And it was having an effect on some of the talents there. It was confusing some of them. Also, the effective memory was making them have emotional breakdowns. And Stella, being married to Harold Clurman at the time, they went to Paris because Stanislavski was staying in Paris. And with the desire to maybe talk to Stanislavski, so they were at a park, and Stella was standing aside, and she's a tall, blonde lady, and at that time, I'm sure, absolutely stunning. And Stanislavski is talking to different people, different artistic people, and he looks over to Stella and says, "You haven't said anything for the last, hour and a half. She says, how come? And she looked at Stanislavski and she said, I used to love acting, and you've made me hate it. And that took him aback. And it got his attention. And now Adler, you got to realize, her father was Jacob Adler. Jacob Adler was from the Yiddish theater. They came from Odessa, Russia, to London, and then to the Yiddish theater in New York. And he was the first of the Yiddish theater that brought the classics to the Yiddish theater. King Lear, he interpreted, and all the Shakespearean plays, and Tolstoy's Resurrection. And her mother, Sarah Adler, was a terrific actor, too. So she grew up around this whole thing, you know. Right. And so now, and Stanislavski knew of the Adler. So now for an Adler to say this to him as well, on top of it being Stella, and he was taken aback by that and said to me, well, what? And she explained some more stuff, and he said to her, meet me tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And they met every day for 6 weeks, from 11 in the morning until 6 or 7 or 8 at night, breaking down the technique. And they, after they did that, he totally told Stella in terms of what was happening in the technique. He brought her back to, she brought the principles and the charts back to America, to the group theater. And she then told, we're doing it wrong. Here is what Stanislavski means. We're going from his early experiments. He's moved on from that. And now she then, there was this schism between her and Lee Strasberg. Lee left the group theater. Stella took over the acting for the group theater. And Robert Lewis and Meisner were all part of this group. All the great traditions of American theater come from this group. And also Michael Chekhov. She talked to Michael Chekhov, who was another brilliant actor of the Moscow Art Theater. And and took over, and the group theater at that time had its greatest successes. This is not to negate any of the qualities of Lee Strasberg, because he was also absolutely brilliant. I studied with him, too, at the Actor Studio, and there are absolute things you can take from everyone, you know what I mean? But Stella had the most cohesive, full, direct work of Stanislavski. And the exercises and the interpretation of the exercises and the subtle differences in the exercises that I've seen get watered down over the years. Right. It's just very interesting. So what did she do? Guys giving a tremendous amount of knowledge and for me, lifting providing me with not only a way of approaching an actor and interpreting the great playwrights and scripts, because the script interpretation classes were absolutely incredible, but being able to lift the ideas in life and seeing things just in life. She would help anyone. I don't care if you were, a shoemaker. If you took, so it wasn't just about acting. It was about being a human being that she was tremendous with. Right. And I think you see also that in her actors. You see that with Brando to communicate. I met him, and he had a very interesting openness. And he also, the thing about Brando, I'll get back to him in a sec. But that Stella gave that in a spiritual lesson. She was just absolutely amazing, and inspiration. The other thing about going back to Brando is there was at the time, my friend George Englund, who I did a movie for. George Englund was Brando's partner and his best friend, and wrote a book on Brando, and was very close and intimate with Marlon. And there was a thing, they did The Ugly American together. George
That's
produced
a great
and
film,
directed.
right?
Isn't it a fantastic film?
Yeah, it is. It's one that a lot of people don't talk about today, but it was so ahead of its time, and I'm surprised more people don't know about it.
Oh, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, ahead of its time, and it's a terrific Brando performance. And there's so many, but the thing of what George said, Marlon always used to say, I want to do it the way it's never the way it's never been done before. You know, the way it's never been done before. So the originality of purpose that he wanted to find something, and you see his use of props comes from Stella, and the texturing of props. Even when you see something like Mutiny on the Bounty and he's sitting downstairs with a napkin, and no matter where he goes, you know what I mean. There is something in terms of the glove in On the Waterfront when he picks it up with the girl, you know?
Or the cat in The Godfather.
The cat in The Godfather.
That just wandered onto the set, you know?
Yeah. And to be open there, you're open to it, and it's almost a space, a transcendent space in terms of living in the circumstances that so many actors don't understand to do, to live in the circumstances that you're in, and endow those circumstances, the props, the furniture, everything, with an essence that feed you. And so many people are very about just line readings as opposed to, and that's not the thing. But I mean, that's another whole.
You're absolutely right, and actually, it's so ironic because I was just watching a commentary over a Pacino film the other night, and the director was saying, "Look at the marvelous way he uses props." And it's something that you're not conscious of, obviously, when you're watching it, but it is true. I mean, it's a whole other discipline that gives such a life to a performance. Have you noticed your own technique kind of change and evolve over the years, and where do you feel like you are now as an actor as opposed to when you started?
You keep getting better and better. You keep honing the craft. You forget, you move on, you go through, depending on different things. You still haven't gotten to, there's still, let me put it this way, the best is yet to come.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how I feel in terms of the evolution of it, I mean, the frustration part of all of that are the parts you play sometimes, more so than the approach to the acting. Because there's just so much, you know what I mean, you can do sometimes with some of the, I don't care who you are, so the talent is in the choice also, but what you do is the economy of things, I mean, it's a surviving life.
Right.
Even a film, let's just say, I mean, those are specific things. It's a difficult, there's like, what how do you refer? What do you refer to specifically in terms of that question?
Well, has your process have you cemented a process now that works for you, that you use for every role? Or do you still mix it up? Do you find
mix it up. No, that's an evolving thing.
Yeah.
It's an evolving thing, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've studied, with so much and so many. I mean, like I said, to Michael Chekhov, who was also Adler-like, his work. Michael Chekhov, we go back into him. I studied, several years ago with this 90-year-old guy who developed Chekhov's work with him, because they wanted to get it from the source of that work. And Michael Chekhov, what was interesting about him is he also said the truth is in the imagination. It's one of the things Stella always would say, the truth is in the imagination. And when Michael Chekhov was at the Moscow Art Theater and giving performances of Hamlet, and it, unlike any, it would be as if today you went to a Broadway show, and after the show, 1,000 people were following the actor that played it down the street and couldn't leave him. That's what happened. That's what Michael Chekhov was to Russia and the Moscow Art Theater. Okay, so this was Stanislavski's most prized pupil. He was the nephew of Anton Chekhov, the playwright. And now, when he did these plays, Michael Chekhov, and he was working in this Moscow art studio doing exercises for Stanislavski, he was doing an effective memory exercise on his father's death. And after the exercise, Stanislavski stands up and says, "This is what the technique is about." And then 2 weeks later, he found out that Michael Chekhov's father was still alive. And it turned Stanislavski upside down on his head, in my whole Viktenko, because it wasn't, you know what I mean? It was supposed to be an effective memory exercise at the moment of his father's death. And it wasn't. It was an imaginary exercise. based on this, and because his father was still alive. So that so the technique evolves, and different things evolve, and so I continue looking and reading, and I have you have your base. It's like a fighter, as well. You have a fighter that you go through your etudes. There are etudes, exercises that just keep you open, and you. So it's an evolving thing, but I have a basic approach.
Well, why bother continuing it unless you're continually learning? I mean, and discovering.
Yes.
And you're continuing to challenge yourself, and you're moving into directing with the Dukes. And what kind of experience? I know you're obviously acting in the film as well. What kind of experience as an actor helped you in your course of directing this film?
Well, the experience and the knowledge I have as an actor, also the ability to communicate to actors, being one of us. Also, the interpretive powers of things, having the respect from actors. The guys that worked on the film all respected my work and thought that, hey, he'd probably do a good job directing, and they liked the screenplay. So it's the communication, being around so many, before I stepped in front of the camera, I'd done 800 performances or so of plays while I was in New York, and then all the television and movies and different variety of things I'd done. I also knew about the crew and the camera, so it's a communication, and it was just a very easy transition, and being able to communicate and gain the trust of your talent.
Excuse me, Robert.
Yes.
What was it you had Peter Bogdanovich also is in the film? I'm just curious, did he ever offer any sort of directing advice or anything, or did you ever seek any advice from him?
No, because the what I did was I sat down with my talent, and Chaz and I were old friends. I always wanted Chaz to play George in the film.
Right.
My cousin, and I talked to Peter, told him what I wanted. He really thought the script was charming and enchanting.
Okay.
And wanted to play the character. Hadn't done something like that. We had lunch. I met him through Stella Adler years ago. Initially, hadn't talked to him in a while, but I loved his look, and he had a dignified pathos about him, And I wanted the character of Lou to have that kind of dignity. You could see at one time the group. He was the manager of the hottest doo-wop group in the world.
Right.
In 1963, we're on top of the world, kind of thing. And we've fallen on difficult times, and in spite of him struggling to get us any kind of employment, he still had that that pathos and dignity underneath it, So it's not just the character who's a loser. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
So it gives a very textured kind of thing. So me understanding that as a director and casting the film like that, then also the funny part about it, there was a couple of times, and Chaz is wonderful, but because when you're close friends, every once in a while somebody may say, you know what, I don't know, what do you challenge you, more than your. Now, as a director, if you let the horses out of the corral, it could be devastating sometimes.
Right.
So you got to maintain that kind of a thing. So I remember one time Chaz said, "Chaz, just do it do it this way, and I think it's going to work. It's really good." Well, and he looked at Peter and he said, "Peter, tell him." And Peter, in that inimitable way, and that face that he has, Peter turns to Chaz and says, "Robert's right, Chaz. Listen to your director." And, so that support, it was fantastic. And then Miriam Margulies, of course, the same way. She was just terrific. And but you take from all your talent. Anybody with a good suggestion and stuff, openness, and you're the final arbitrator. You're open, but you must be the final arbitrator. So no matter what when you finally, because you live and die on that sword.
Right.
Well, I know that this idea first came to you, I think I read in the 70s. What about this project appealed to you so much that you stuck with it for as long as you did to see it to fruition?
Well, my first cinema that I saw as a child, I don't know if you read that, but was the Italian neorealists.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents, being Italian immigrants, would take me to the Italian cinemas that they had in Astoria and in New York. And as a kid, I would see, De Sica, Fellini,
mm-hmm.
Rossellini, Ettore Scola, Mario Monicelli, Pasolini. I mean, the great, great Italian filmmakers.
Right.
These were the first precious images that I had. I also then loved the great American cinema, the giants of American cinema. But the first stuff that I was affected by were these neorealists. Then the neorealist, out of that came a style of Italian film called Commedia all'Italiana.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the neorealists dealt with very humanistic social issues in a not in a humorous way.
Right. Oh, no, of course not.
You know what I mean? They had a very, 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 it was a very, I don't want to say bleak, because it wasn't just bleak, because those films are beautiful, and they also leave you with a sense of wonder in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're dealing with very hard issues. But the outpour from that, the style of Commedia all'Italiana, comes from that, where you apply the neorealist techniques, you use the social situations, but you now take them and with a humorous sensibility. So it's the same kind of, so there's a reality to that. It's not a shout-in-your-face kind of humor.
Right.
It's a humor that unfolds through character situation. And that style of film I loved. And having read that article in the 70s about the steelworkers getting laid off, which was, while I was studying with Adler, was deeply affecting to me, because as a young guy, you're not thinking about the future too much,
Mm-hmm.
You're more in the immediacy, and you're not really thinking about the past. You're in the present. I mean, you look at, we're always in the present moment, but you don't have a point of reference. Right. You don't have the point of reference how tough things can be sometimes. But and at that moment in America in the mid-70s, 25,000 steelworkers getting laid off, the plant being closed. Wait a minute, these people were working here for 20-some-odd years. What happens to their lives? What happens to their families?
Mm.
So you look at that, and it was just a big jolt. Then a couple of years later, my dad got laid off from his job. I come from a blue-collar family. My dad worked 3 and 4 jobs to support the family and stuff. And then, you get the... I was reading Alvin Toffler's book, The Third Wave, where he talks about an industrial age going to a technological one, and how during that transition, the world economy and workforce was going to, bottom out and fall through the cracks, and it'd be a big transition. So these themes were in my head, and I started writing about them. But I didn't want to take this issue and make it depressing, downbeaten. I also wanted to give us a message of hope at the end.
Yeah.
And tell the story with a humorous tonality, which in the style of an American commedia all'italiana, so to speak.
So like you were more influenced, like for this, it sounds like, I haven't seen the Dukes yet, it looks like my kind of movie, but it sounds like you were influenced by like Big Deal, Madonna Street, and those kind of comedies from the 50s.
Solita Ignotti, yes, I Vitelloni.
Solita Ignotti, yes.
Absolutely. The divorced Italian style, Seduto e Abbandonata,
Oh, those are
Mafioso.
wonderful films.
Yeah, all these films had a certain thing, and I wanted to. Now, the biggest moment for me was at the Rome Film Festival last year, where someone had shown the film to Piera de Tassis, who was the editor of Ciak magazine, the most important film magazine of Italy, and one of the most film magazines of Europe. She is the head of the premiere section in the Rome Film Festival. So I get notified by her saying she would love for me to be in the premiere section. Now, I go, what? That's their red carpet event.
Yeah,
the premiere section. That's their red carpet event. And now all of a sudden, I'm in this section with Coppola, Sean Penn, Redford, Sidney Lumet, Gavin Hood, Julie Trainer.
Wow.
And I'm going to myself, wait a minute, my film is a budget of, I'm a first-time director. These guys are monsters. And so I was nervous. And she loved the film. And she took a chance on this thing. And the morning of the day of, I'm in Rome now, and a couple of days, and the day of our press screening, which is 9 o'clock in the morning for all the critics and the press. And then that afternoon I have my interviews, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Peter was with me. But in the morning, 9 o'clock, you can't go to that screening. So I figured to myself, 9 o'clock in the morning, what else do I want? These people are going to hate having to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning in the first place, Partying in Italy all night long. Now they got to get up for a film. But anyway, they come to me. I'm at the Sala at l'Accademia di Santa Cecilia, and they come running up the ramp where I'm sitting, waiting for the interviews to start around midday, and with thumbs up going, Trionfi, Trionfi. And the audience of critics had burst out into applause after the film. And the next day in the papers, they reported that. And the Corriere della Sera, La Stampa, all the Il Tempo, they all reported this. And that night we screened for 1,800 people, and there was a nice standing thing for a few minutes. And it was a thrilling moment. And they had captured, they said that it was one of the first times the American director's been able to capture the commedia all'italiana, an American, and the tribute to I Soli Ignoti, the homage, where here you are in the home country. Now take this, guys, to the next, Jamie, to the next level. And what happens is we get and it's Jerry, right?
Yeah, Jerry, yes.
Yeah, Jerry. We get to the next phase. I get invited to the Monte Carlo Festival of Comedy. Okay. Who's the artistic director? Take a guess. You have no clue, right?
No clue. I'm not going to even embarrass myself. I have no clue.
Mario Monacelli.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh,
Mario Monacelli.
God.
Okay. Now, a lot of people are listening going, who the hell are they talking about? What are these, Italian dishes from a restaurant? But if you know Mario Monacelli is the father of Italian comedy who did I Soli Ignoti, Big Deal on Madonna Street.
Yeah.
And a lot of people.
Okay. What that must have been now for you.
So,
it must have been kind of nerve-wracking.
So now I'm in Monte Carlo. Mario Monacelli is the artistic director. The president of the jury is Ettore Scola. Now, Ettore Scola is another huge giant of una giornata particolare, Brutte Sporche Cattivi, La Famiglia. I mean, this guy is a giant in America. You got to realize these are giants. He's in his 70s. I think he got a thing on Motorcycle Diaries. They're still working. They're still vibrant. Right. These men. And Ettore Scola's 3 Golden Palms, Oscar, a million American Academy, Italian, French Academy Awards. I mean, giants. He's the president of the jury, and Claude Zidi, who did My New Partner and The Animal with Belmondo, and My New Partner with Philippe Noiret.
Yeah, that's right.
He's on the jury. So I screen there. I get Best First Time Director and Special Jury Best Screenplay. So I get 2 awards from these guys. Then I get invited to the French Festival of Comedy, the 3rd largest festival in France, and the only comedy festival, where the big stars of the French comedy go there and blah, blah, blah. And Juno and the Dukes are the only 2 American films, and I get the Corps de Corps, the prize of the heart from the French. And that's with Claude Norad, Fabrice Lucchini, José Garcia, and all these terrific French giants, And
that's got to be amazingly
that's
gratifying.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great to hear.
Yeah, so this little picture, the little movie that could, Then we, some stuff in America. We've gotten some lovely awards from the Houston World Fest, and different things. It didn't go to Sundance or any of the big things here, but we had a tremendous response to the picture, and I hope you guys could see it. Where do you guys reside?
I'm in outside Washington D.C. I'm in the Washington D.C. suburbs.
And I'm in Florida. I'm right here in Florida.
Different place. Because I'd like you to see it not on a DVD but on the screen.
I would love to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where you got to see the film. You got to see it on the screens. I got to find a way for this after we hang up, I'll give you the email, my email, so you can get me directly here, and I'll figure out a way.
Well, we are very, very excited about it, and just to let everyone know, the website where our listeners can get more information about the film is it the Dukes movie?
The Dukes-movie.com.
Right.
And Dukes-movie.com.
It opens up in New York this upcoming weekend, the 14th. And it'll open up in California and some other regions after that. You can get all that information on the website, and we'll be sure to put it up during the show for our listeners.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, it'll be in Oregon and Texas and California, and then we'll be Philadelphia. I mean, it's all over. I mean, we'll be opening up.
Yeah, there's a huge market for this kind of film. Just because I think people, first of all, heist films are great, but this also has a heart to it, and I think. You mentioned, just because of just current events, I think a lot of people can relate to the characters. I mean, this has everything. It's
a funny thing. You'll go, we've been having screenings in New York. It's been getting tremendous stuff. We had one for the educators yesterday afternoon. Film professors, PhDs, teachers from elementary to high school to college, some of the students. They filled out. I said, I don't want to fill out. You never want to hear. They filled out these things. They give them these things. What they think about the film and stuff. We've got tremendous. I mean, I was embarrassed. They were reading it to me, showing me some of the things. I said, "Stop! I'm embarrassed now." I mean, it was this particular economic time period, which it really relates to the everyman. I wanted this film to be fun. I wanted there to be some moral issues in the thing that people face, but so the heist comes into play, because when you're desperate, even good people are thinking, how the hell do I do this? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How the hell do I survive? So I wanted to provide, that's not the answer to our lives. And it leaves you uplifted, and there's a lot of symbolism in the thing that subtly is in there, that after you see it, I'll have you a discussion on that, some of that. But thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you anxious to direct again after this experience? Have you got the film directing bug now?
I got the bug. No, I've always wanted to direct. As a little boy, like I said, when I first saw those Italian films, I looked at the film not just for an actor or as an actor, but I looked at the film as what was being said, the auteur. I was intrigued by the man who made the film. And that always intrigued me. Even, when I love Capra, and John Ford and all these, we all do, Billy Wilder, tremendous talents. And to me, that was just the excitement of those, but I just finished another film that I started as an actor, and then they saw the Dukes, and they saw the initial cut that was done on the film from the other director, and they asked me to take it over, and I then recut the whole thing, redesigned the concept, and shot an extra 35 minutes on the film, and so that thing is coming out. We're finishing it now. We're in post now. It's called Magic. It's a lovely, lovely fable piece about Christopher Lloyd plays the voice of a dog who comes to Earth as an angel to heal a father and daughter's denial of the mother's passing on. And it's a very sweet picture. And then people had seen this film, The Dukes. They saw The Dukes in the Palm Beach Festival. And they came to me and said, what do I want to do next? And now me and James and Veronica, my collaborator, we're writing our new film, Little Al, that's been financed. So that's going to be the next real thing that has just my stamp on it.
Well, this is a great time for you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the top right here. This is great for you. I mean, do you feel like this is a big crossroads in your life and your career, and your creative juices are flowing in a way that like never before here?
Yeah, I do. I feel that. They were always flowing, but you didn't have the for whatever reason. No, I've always been, again, the frustration of the typecasting aspect. I've always been, oh, he's that guy, or he played the bad guy, or good actor. Oh, I love him in this, and I love him. But they, you're not given the. I don't want to say underestimated, but in a way, yes, because you're not. The definition of who you are isn't fully understood.
Right.
And what this does, like I said, it lets me. The typecasting. That phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Well, this lets me open the book and show more
Right.
of who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in that way, absolutely. I've opened the book, and now those pages want to fly out,
Yeah. Well, Jerry and I talk about you frequently, and we both
I
think
love
you're...
Distance Wise Guy, so, I mean, I grew up with you on Wise Guy, so.
Oh, thanks.
We both think you're one of the coolest actors on the planet. So
Yeah, definitely.
We can't wait to see the movie. Robert, I appreciate you taking your time out with us, and
Thank you.
We'll do everything in our power to get the word out about this, the Dukes, and we wish you the best of luck, man.
Yes.
Guys, thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing, spreading an art form that we all love and enjoy.
Right.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Robert.
Well, thank you, Robert.